I had the opportunity to run through its paces a Langdon Tactical Heckler Koch P30, and I have a lot of thoughts and some feelings. So let me go through them by the numbers. I'm going to tell you all about this gun. Stick around. Firstly, before I get into this at all, I'd like to thank my good friend Zach for letting me borrow his gun. This is his gun and optioned how he wanted. I'll talk more about that in a second. But seriously, Zach, thanks so much to you for letting me borrow this. I did clean it, by the way, and I will get it back to you in a condition at least as nice as the one I got it. Before I talk about this gun specifically, I probably got to talk about me and HK pistols, or for that matter, HK guns in general. I'm not the biggest HK fan, and before all the HK fan kids, fanboys come running in screaming, stand by. HK makes a very accurate gun. They make a very reliable gun. They make a very durable gun. They make a gun that has very good ergonomics, feels really good in the hand. So you're probably saying, Jay, why don't you like HK guns? And it really kind of goes down to the whole, like the stuff that just speaks to you when you look at it, you touch it, you go, man, this is really awesome. And things that just don't really ring your bell, float your boat, blow up your skirt, whatever. For whatever reason, HKs never really did that for me. And not that I have a bad opinion of them. Guys, my duty gun for work is an HK VP9. It's a good gun. Reliable gun, accurate gun. I have no issues with it. Like, don't think I'm a hater. It's just not the gun that I have gravitated toward. So if you like HKs, good on you. They're good guns. I'm not telling you not to own one. I was a little bit lukewarm when Zach mentioned this gun, but I was curious to see what the heck Langdon had done to this gun. And before I go any further, let me talk about Ernest Langdon, by the way, who in addition to running Langdon Tactical, the company that among other things does some gunsmithing and armorer work, he is a military veteran, competitive shooter, and a brilliant instructor. Amazing shooter. Can't say really too much about that. I have managed to shoot with him several times in state matches a while back, and he crushes. He is an incredible competitor and a really nice guy. At least he's always been super nice to me. So let me just say good things about that in general. But I was curious as to what his company would do with this gun. And if you go to the page where you can buy this gun, there's a whole pile of options. So without going deep into every single thing you can have done, my man Zach had his optioned out with their milled slide. So they milled the slide, put their plate, their optics plate on it, and that optics plate has built-in rear backup sight and a corresponding front sight that matches that rear backup. In addition, Zach had them put the gray guns trigger face and trigger springs in here. And I'm not exactly sure which of the options he picked. I'm pretty sure it was the light, not extra light, because when I tested out the trigger pull on this gun, it was about 3.75 pounds, and it tested that way every time I tested it. So it was very similar every time. I didn't get weird, goofy trigger pulls every single time. It was the same every time. Zach obviously got the rear sight or rear plate for the EPS carry Hollow Sun optic. Enclosed boys, enclosed crew. I like it. He also put on it a TLR 7A, which I think is an excellent choice for a concealed carry gun. Not a great choice for a duty gun, excellent for concealed carry. The options that he picked, I like. And I thought, well, let's try it out. And when I got out to the range and I shot it, my general thoughts on it. Oh, and did I mention the trigger and the trigger springs were gray gun? John Correa mentioned in my Facebook page. He was very specific about it. So I'm sure if I channel him, he'll want me to mention that. They're gray gun stuff. Now, before I go any further, guys, you could definitely get your own trigger. Like you could go to the Gray Guns website, get these trigger springs, install it in your gun. You could probably send it off to somebody and get them to mill the slide and stick an optic on there. But what really you get with Langdon Tactical is a turnkey experience, right? Like you get the gun, all the options on it, everything's gonna work, and it's got a warranty through them. So it's really a turnkey experience. I know some people are really like, man, I really wanna do my own work and my own tinkering, and I'm that way and I get it. But at the end of the day, there's really something kind of bespoke and cool about getting a turnkey, quote, custom option that just shoots. You just take it home, load it up, it's ready to go. I did a bunch of shooting with this gun. some bullseye shooting, some speed shooting, all sorts of other stuff. And here's where I probably have to get into the weeds and talk about synergy. And this is going to be probably really corny. The word's been overused so many times, but it's the general thought of, can the sum of all of the parts be worth more? And in this case, I feel like it is, because the trigger on this gun is really nice. The optic setup is nice and it's not too high. The sighting is low profile, so if you need the backups, they're there, but they're very unobtrusive if you're just running the optic, and the gun just flat out shoots. It just shoots. I put probably a good 600 rounds through it. I'm sure it's not going to shock you. It had no malfunctions. I wouldn't expect any out of this gun. If you even remotely maintain it in terms of cleaning and lubrication, I would expect you probably have a whole lot of rounds downrange before it ever malfunctions on you one time. And just like from the factory, if you're in a state that allows it, it ships with 317 round mags. Don't get me started on magazine restrictions. That's a whole nother issue. And just like you would expect from any HK, you have multiple choices for side panels, back straps. So you can configure the grip to fit almost any size hand or any preference. I think Zach left this with the large stuff on here, and I just left it alone. It worked fine for my hand, so I didn't have any issues. If I did have any issue at all, it was probably the magazine release, or I'm sorry, the slide catch, because my big fat hands usually get all over the slide catch, and sometimes I wouldn't get locked back when I hit the last round. But I get that with my VP9 as well, because it shares a very similar setup for the slide release or slide catch. It is ambidextrous, and for whatever reason, I just can't seem to keep my big dirty mitts off of that. Some people don't like the paddle mag release. I never had a problem with it, and I don't find it to be any better or worse than what Americans usually use for mag releases. The paddle one's okay for me. I usually end up using my social finger or my thumb to actuate it. But you know, there are numerous techniques that'll work. Interesting thing, this particular gun is an LEM trigger, and I don't have a lot of experience with LEM triggers. I've spent a little bit of time on them, but it is a double action trigger. And so every time, if you look, you can see the hammer moving back and then it drops. Did I mention this trigger is really light? And when it cycles, if you go forward, you'll get a reset and then you can shoot again. Even in the stock configuration, it's a very light trigger and it's a longer trigger. But with the gray gun setup, it didn't feel like I really had to make any sort of transition to a different trigger style. Whereas the stock LEM trigger, it feels a little weird to me at first. I didn't have that with this. Like, this trigger just feels like a trigger to me. I don't really notice any take up or any weird stuff or any let off, which I do with the original LEM trigger. So if you do have one of these and you don't particularly like the LEM trigger that you got from the factory, I'd tell you to go get the gray gun set up at whatever poundage is appropriate for you. They do have an extra light, which apparently was something like 3¼ pounds. I am glad that my man Zach didn't pick that option. That seems just a little too light. But overall, guys, shooting this thing was so much fun. When I'm shooting slow, I find the recoil to be a little bit stronger. For whatever reason, it seems to bounce more for me. But I've been shooting comped guns so much, maybe I just need to get a little more physical strength. I don't know. But when I started shooting it fast, I probably locked down a little bit harder when I'm doing that. And I'm telling you guys, when I was shooting fast, it really didn't give me any fits at all. It just tracked nicely and repeatably, came back, let me get another one on target. I am astounded at how nice this gun shoots. And this is from somebody who was, and I mentioned this, very mediocre on HK product prior to me getting hold of this gun and playing with it. I don't know that this has converted me. I don't know that I'm gonna run out and buy a Langdon edition of this gun, but if I were in the market for a P30, this would probably be my first stop. I am still super, super impressed with this gun. Unfortunately, I probably do have to give it back, although Zach did tell me to hang on to it as long as I wanted. I'll give it back to you, Zach. Anyway, guys, that's it. super impressive little gun. Langdon Tactical does all sorts of other firearms, not just HKs. I think they do Glocks. I know they do Berettas, including their pistols and their shotguns. And on my short list of things to try out one of these days is one of the Langdon Tactical Beretta 1301s. I hear superlative things about that. I'll end this here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, every last one of you guys. And if you've enjoyed this content, I would certainly appreciate you subscribing and liking. Guys, I'm going to end this here. Take care. Stay safe. I'll talk to you soon.
Get 'em, Jay.